Hello again, guys. It is I, Free700. We are back again for Chapter 7, Educational Experience of a Lifetime, by me, Free700. Before we begin, just know this is a big-ass warning. There's some very gruesome scenes in here, so if you do not want to see that or do not want to hear it, I would recommend not continuing any further. Alright, so here we go. The hours flew by. The Marine mentor was for once lightening up as he spewed stories of glory and valor to the kids. Stories of just a small contingent freeing refugees with artillery fire. Stories of accepting honorable duels amongst other Space Marine chapters and coming out on top. The boys leaned in, captured by the sheer emotion of pride the Space Marine was showing in his stories. Each of the boys felt it in their chest, a yearning, wishing that they were the heroes in this man's story. The dream of freeing thousands of slaves from evil, foul Xeno hands in a glorious salvo of rockets. Jorg was most surprised to hear these stories, and was the one asking the most questions as to how these heroes accomplished their task, as it was rather shocking that these cruel slavers are the same heroes that they are hearing about today. Bonnet was making faces the whole time he was listening, his face in a turn of pain, sweat, and intrigue, wishing to hear more of the story but too busy holding his side, wishing it would stop pulsing with pain. Unsure of why his kidney was hurting and unaware that he was jabbed hard in his side, and this was the result of getting hit in the kidney. Numid listened, but only partly. He was more concerned with trying to weasel away another bone, but the slaves moved the body away from the group of boys, so Numid looked around to see what else he could use to gain an advantage. This was most important, as the boy who he hated the most was Bonnet, and Bonnet was sitting in front of him, exposed for a sneak attack by Numid. The Space Marine mentor had a smile on his face. The boys could never see it below his helmet, but his smile was that of a serpent. Just gotta keep telling them our Valiant stories, and not mention the casualties of others, and what a dishonor we brought to the Black Templars in stealing their armor. Once they are infatuated with our chapter, that is when we show them how hard life is, molding their thoughts to think like us. The boys also learned about the alien races that stink the universe, and the mutated humans that live amongst them. Learning of these species, the Marine grew their hatred for them, showing how the Eldar always struck weak targets, refusing to fight, and orcs always beating up women and children, finding it fun when they choke on their blood. The serpent Tau always convincing other humans that it is okay to betray one another. These stories served the purpose of growing zeal and hatred in the boys' minds. This was working. All the stories of honor and glory with hate has made them all eager to fight, forgetting their petty squabbles on their homeworld where tribe identities mattered. Now they are geared to help fight the galaxy against the threats that exist only to destroy humanity. Loud footsteps can be heard coming from the hallway. The boys know that means that a Space Marine is coming. The slaves all look at each other, their eyes peering at one another, their pupils constricted, sweat dripping from their spines in the cool room. The Space Marine mentor sighs. He knows what this means. He stands from his chair and steps down the altar and gazes into the hallway, standing there amongst the confused boys. The boys rise up slowly, not sure what is going on or what is happening, completely forgetting about Armin.
Pelgar, you dare steal from me?
Armin boomed.
Can't steal from someone if they can't protect what they own.
Pelgar spoke out.
Now leave before I take more from you, Armin.
Armin enters the room for all to see him. His helmet looked newer than their mentors. His helmet bore 2 broken wings. The shattering of the wings was intentional in a vain effort to hide whose helmet it belonged to. His chest piece had a beautiful colored set of wings with a sword at the center. The top feathers were yellow, but the bottom were gray. He was furious, coming into the room with both fists clenched, legs spread. He was ready to fight.
I will kill everyone in this fucking room if you don't return what is mine.
He reached his hand out to grab one of the boys. Numid panicked, thinking the hand would grab him. He pushes Bonnet into the massive metal claws of Armin.
Return my slave to me, or I start by crushing this boy's chest,
he said as he held Bonnet's chest in one hand, holding him like a doll. Bonnet was scared. He was flailing around, trying to get out of the metallic jaws that Numid had pushed him into. He was yelling for help, for the man in the armor to let him go. Armin never looked away from Pelgar, knowing Pelgar valued his students more than his slaves.
Kill him or anyone in this room and I will ruin your armor, Armin. You think just 'cause you got some new armor that makes you invincible when all it does is it make you a fool. What you kill I will take from you.
Pelgar wasn't budging. He knew Bonnet was a dead man no matter what he said. Armin wanted vengeance, not justice. He wasn't looking for his property back. He was looking for his respect. And you don't get respect by negotiating with your thieves. All the boys gather behind their mentor, now knowing his name is Pelgar, feeling safer next to him than standing in place like the slaves were. Bonnet stopped flailing upon hearing Pelgar's words, realizing that his life is over. His eyes gazed a blank stare, a stare of life exiting his body, his soul already embracing the coming of death. A crack is heard. Bonnet's thorax was broken, ribs and spine shattered in an instant, his lungs and heart squished to a pulp. His head, that was between the Space Marine's fingers, now popped off of his body, rolling off of the Marine's knuckles and onto the floor. The Marine lets go of the shattered corpse for all the boys to see. Bonnet's arms and legs looked normal, but his chest had no blood in it, squeezed of all life and wrinkled like a wrung washcloth. The boy was dead. A brief pause was had. The boys shocked at Bonnet's death, seeing his eyes popped out of his skull as his head rolled on the floor, his mouth open with blood pouring out of his nose, ears, and eyes. The boys each held their chest, imagining how that feels to get one's chest crushed like that. But this was no time for mourning. Pelgar was annoyed, and it was time to show this intruder his way out. Pelgar lunged in, beginning the titanic duel, the likes of which the boys had never seen. Pelgar was silent but swift. Armin was roaring brute, eager for bloodshed. Pelgar locks in his left hand on Armin's collar, delivering a swift punch to Armin's left visor, cracking it. Armin grapples Pelgar and slams him to the floor, causing a dent into the brass. Armin on top of Pelgar, he raises his fist up ready to strike his downed opponent, but Pelgar raises his chest. Revealing his hidden blade from his wrist, he strikes deep into Armin's stomach. Armin still strikes down, but this time instead of rage, it's desperation. Trying to get off of Pelgar, but Pelgar's right arm stopping him from getting up. The speed of Pelgar's thrust shocked the boys as they witnessed the unglory being displayed. Pelgar, feeling his opponent getting weaker, stands up with Armin still on his waist. Rising up like a man carrying a boulder, he puts down his knife and uses both hands to hold Armin high above his head. Low grunting can be heard. In a brutal slam, he crashes Armin down, denting the floor deeper than when he was thrown.
Bring me your recruits to make up for the shit you destroyed here. Or else I'll pay a visit to your chambers and we will finish what you started here.
Armin rolled onto his hands and knees, blood dripping out of the gaps in his armor, coughing, catching his breath from the sheer force of being slammed onto the ground.
I am most sorry. I forgot what a vilifier could do, and I should have respected that. New recruits will be brought to you now.
Pelgar walks slowly to his chair, sitting down tired, but not from the fight, just tired from all the divides in his chapter, how they are always at each other's throats. Enduro walks up to Pelgar, captivated by the heroic act he just performed. Enduro leans forward, the question on his mind begging for answers. Can we restore brotherhood amongst the chapter?
You can, but it will be a tough salvage.
The Marine leans forward, gazing back into his eyes, knowing his boy has a future.
But that is why I am training you. You will restore us.